Greetings, Earthlings! It's Sandy here for Pajama Crafter Stamps, and today we are launching into a galaxy of crafty fun with the brand new I Come in Peace stamp set. This card is out of this world adorable and packed with spacey charms, so buckle up, grab your favorite crafty supplies, and get ready for liftoff. If you love card making ideas, make sure to blast that thumbs up button and subscribe to the channel because our creative team is always orbiting with stellar inspiration. We are going to start out placing a moon on this piece of cardstock so we have a place to plant our Milky Way sign. I've got a piece of white cardstock that's cut at 5.5 by 5.5. I'm using a stencil to kind of lay out my moon surface. Not sure if moons are bright yellow, but mine is going to be bright yellow today. I'm going to use Squeeze Lemonade, Distress Oxide ink, and just lay that in that stencil opening. To add a little bit more color to this moon surface, I've got my small blending brush and I'm putting in a little bit of carved pumpkin just on that upper edge. That just helps give it a more dimensional look. I'm moving that stencil down because now I'm going to use it as a mask so that I can get the rest of my outer space sky done. I'm using another stencil from my stash to create this galaxy looking type sky. And I'm going to use my mat will keep it down, but I also need to add on a little bit of tape because when I start ink blending I kind of lose all focus and start ink blending where I don't need to be. First color I'm going to be using is Wilted Violet, and I'm just going to lay that in those open areas on this stencil. To add just a wee bit more dimension to that Wilted Violet, I will be blending in a little bit of Villainous Potion Distress Oxide ink just on those edges of the stencil. I'm using the mask part of that stencil to cover up those purple areas that I've got inked on already. I'm going to use a magnet to help hold those pieces down, but I do wind up my hands just work better. They're just going to get really inky in this project. I will start with a little bit of Salty Ocean in that center open area that doesn't have anything on it yet, and just blend in a little bit of that color, leaving it very light at the top and leaving a space down below the Salty Ocean for the other colors. The next color I'm going to be laying in is Peacock Feathers, and I'm just going to put that in right underneath my Salty Ocean, and you can see that I'm still having a little bit of a time holding on to my masks and my stencil pieces, and I'm leaving this in the video just to show you that, and I fall for the same thing. You watch other people do these videos and it always looks so easy. Well, you know what? Sometimes the struggle's real, so now you can just watch me struggle through this poor little sky. Next, we're going to blend a little bit of Twisted Citron up at the top of that card. Now, if you'll notice, I haven't peeled off that protective tape at the top, and so that purple is going to blend down into my Twisted Citron, which is okay because it's kind of a, inky galaxy type sky, but it does wind up leaving a line that I'm going to have to work around. And again, I'm leaving this in the video to show you that sometimes things just don't work out perfectly, and there are usually ways you can work around it. And as you can see, my galaxy sky is not perfect, so I'm going to use my die and try to work around those little imperfections. And then I can always come back in and add extra ink to it. I just don't want to start all over. I think everything else looks so pretty that we're going to keep it. And so to cover those blank spots, I am going to use some prized ribbon, and I'm going to go around that outside edge at the upper part just to add in some more color. And that's just fine because I think it's adding a little bit more dimension to that sky. And as you can see, we are working with what we've got. I want to give the illusion of stars, so I'm going to spatter some metallic spatter on top of this background. I did wind up covering up my moon again because I didn't want stars on my moon. That looks pretty good, so we're going to set that way aside to let it dry. As much as I'm struggling on this project, I want to make sure that I don't set anything on it until those little drops are dry. All right, you have to admit that the struggle was definitely worth it because this background is just gorgeous. Now I've got my background cut at 4¼ by 5¼ by 4 inches. So I'm going to put it on a piece of black cardstock that is cut at 5½ by 4¼ and I will be using liquid glue. I am a liquid glue girl. I don't like to use adhesive tapes just because I think with my dry climate here in Colorado, they don't tend to stick for very long. So we're going to fix that with the liquid glue. I've used the Dang Whoa Yikes die set to cut out this sentiment, and I've just got it on a piece of bright orange cardstock, and the front of the actual lettering has been ink blended a little bit at the bottom. I have my little alien stamped and cut out, and I am just going to start with the actual alien part of this image. My alien colors are going to be YG00. That's my lightest color. My mid-tone is going to be YG05, and my darkest shading will be G05. Now, Pajama Crafters has the most amazing coloring card. It's called Marshmallow Coloring Paper. And I love it. And I am very, very picky on what paper I use when I'm Copic coloring just because so many of the papers cause bleed. I love this stuff. So you might want to check it out if you don't already use it. It's magic. Anyway, when I color, I like to color my whole area with that color combination with the lightest color first, and then I go back in with my mid color and then my darkest color, and I just find that helps me blend a little bit to have that paper wet. Someday I will start like everybody else does with the dark color, move into the medium color and then into the light color. That just hasn't worked for me yet, so this is the method I use. All right, we're going to go with a hot pink for this frosting on this flying donut. I am starting off with RV02. I will move into RV04, and then my darkest color is going to be RV06. And I'm just trying to be really careful as I'm going around those little sprinkle spots to make sure I don't get color in those because I want to color all of those with some different colors to give it a real pop of color. She is flying a chocolate donut, so we are going to start off with E31. Mid color will be E23. And my darkest color is E57. And the little flames that are coming out of the back of her little donut, propelling her around the galaxy, I will be using Y23, Y17 be my mid color, and my darkest color is going to be YR16. The blue sprinkles on her donut are B00, B02, and a teeny bit of B04. Now the little bubble above her head is going to be a very light blue because I want to kind of keep it still pretty transparent. So I'm going to do B quad, B triple, and B double. And I might go in with a little bit of the B01 just to do a little bit more shading. The purple sprinkles on her donut are V04, V15, and V17. Now I'm also going to be using all of these little colors that I'm using on her donut to do the sign down below and then the little planet and the stars up above. The yellow sprinkles are Y00, Y08, and Y19, which almost looks orange. Now I love a little bit of dimension on all of my cards, so I am going to use foam tape to pop up everything that is on that background for this card. I also don't worry about keeping my little images within the background that's inked. Sometimes it adds a lot to your card if you let those extend over the background onto like that trim paper. So as you can see, my woe is actually hanging off the background and it's extending onto the black cardstock, and I think that just adds another real special element to the card. So again, I'm just going to pop everything up. I will use liquid glue, and I use that mostly to help me position my little pieces, not so much to adhere it. It's just a nice little barrier that gives me a wee bit of wiggle room to get it exactly where I want it. As much as I like dimension on my cards, I also like a little bit of bling. So this is the perfect card to add a few of the fairy dust rhinestones to it, and that just adds that little starry sparkle and makes that card just that much more special. To finish up this card, we're going to put it on a card base. So I have my card base already cut out. I cut it at 5.5 by 8.5 and scored it at 4 1/4. Now I am going to use liquid glue to put the front of my card on to my card base, and that is because I have had problems with double-sided adhesive sticking over the long haul, and I think that's because our climate here is so dry in Colorado. I'll go ahead and get that adhered to my card, and then on the inside I add a small piece of not small, but I add another piece of cardstock. It's cut at 5 1/4 by 4 inches to that back piece. And the reason I do that is the front of my cards are usually thick. I mean, they've got a lot of layers of paper on them, and I always feel like the back of the card feels kind of chintzy or kind of wimpy. So I add a little bit of paper to that back piece. Now, if I were putting a sentiment on this card, I would put the sentiment on that piece of paper before I glued it to the inside, but this card is going to stay blank for now. And that pretty much completes this adorable card. I just love everything about this card. The whole thought of flying donuts just cracks me up. Plus, it's such a fun theme. I love doing outer space themes. They're one of my favorites. Thanks so much for taking this crafty space mission with me today. If this project made your creativity take flight, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up before you rock it away. Until next time, keep your creativity shining brighter than the stars. Bye-bye.